Hey, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How's everyone doing? Survived the lunch and the auction and everything good? Been a good show for you. Has everybody gotten the light bulb to come off and go on at least once? At least one time. Hey, that's the minimum standard. If you don't leave with a good idea that you can implement, then we failed. So did everybody get at least one thing that you can take home and put to use? Hopefully you got many more than that. But that's always our goal for NIADA dealer education, is to actually educate. So what we have today for you is underwriting. And I am going to start by introducing myself. Then I'm going to introduce my fellow operators over here. My name is David Brotherton. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a NIADA 20 group moderator. I moderate buy here, pay here groups and service groups. I've been in the buy here, pay here business for a long time. I'm coming up on, I'm over 20 years at this point, so I kind of lose track. I started sometime in the 90s. And I'm very excited to be here. Look forward to a good session. So, if you've never been in a panel before, there are some rules. It's not my job to ask the questions. That's rule number one. It's yours. You guys okay with that? Now, we don't have mics on the floor or anything like that, so when you speak up, please speak up. Let me know you got a question. I'll pick you out of the crowd and use that car dealer voice. Project, so, because I probably won't be able to hear you, but I want to make sure they can hear you as well. Fair enough? Are we good? All right, I'm going to start by having my group introduce themselves. We'll start with Nihad here on the end.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nihad Dwekat. We have a dealership in Arlington, Texas. I've been in the buy here, pay here for about 16 years. I started at the dealership as an accountant and made my way all the way. Right now, I'm the CEO of the operation. We currently hold a portfolio of $150 million, about 10,000 active accounts, and we sell about 600 cars a month. And we have 10 active locations where we do buy here, pay here.
Thank you. Jason.
My name is Jason March. I'm a second-generation dealer from Jacksonville, Florida. We have one location. We don't have as many accounts as he does. We have about 1,250 accounts. Saturday afternoons, we have a delinquency under 10%. We've been maintaining that for the last 4 years, probably. We're pretty picky with our underwriting, and we do about 90 cars a month.
Thank you. Alan?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alan Levitt. We're based out of Chicago, Illinois. Got 3 dealerships, about 2,200 accounts, portfolio about $22 million. That's about it. Excited to be here.
So, that's us in a nutshell. Let's hear what you guys want to hear about underwriting. Floor's open for questions. Sir.
Talk a little bit about down payment being an indicator of your goal. It don't matter. How much? What's your average down payment?
I'll go ahead and start. So my average down payment is $810. Does down payment matter for loan pro forma over time? No. Does it matter for cash flow and grip in the game? Absolutely. Obviously it's much more beneficial for everybody to get as much money down as possible. And it also holds the client a lot more accountable to not throw the keys in your face. Something happens down the line or something's going on with them. If if you do a car with $1 down or something like that, and something doesn't, we sell used cars. Something's going to go wrong. Something happens. They don't have any restrictions of not giving the car back right away, or, so it's just grit in the game. I'm saying I would say it. I would say it. I would say it over time. It doesn't matter for performance of the loan. It does matter for cash flow, absolutely, and it just obviously for the customer's mindset to put more money down, they have a little bit more leverage in the game. So if something does go wrong early on in the loan, it's going to be a lot harder for them to return the car.
Yeah, I know. I heard him say two different things in the same sentence too.
I'll try and explain from our perspective how the down payment plays a role in our underwriting. So I agree with you, it does and it doesn't. So when we look at historical performance of loans, we find that the down payment by itself is not a factor. So paying $500 down, it wasn't a factor in making them perform better. But in the risk business, part of the underwriting where you can change the structure to a less risky by taking more down payment. So it kind of does matter in a way that it reduces your risk on the street. It doesn't necessarily make the customer 100% better by putting more down payment, and we see that specifically in the tax season where you get all kinds of cash, and those are probably the worst performing loans it turns to be. So we use the down payment as a factor to kind of reduce the risk. Where it's a risky customer, let's say it's 70% risky now, by taking more down payment, we reduce the risk factor a little bit. Hope that. We're about 12 to 15%. We shoot for 15% actually of the cost of the vehicle. So it's not, just sit. We try and recover 15% up front. You don't get that all the time on every deal, but on average we end up getting 15% of the ACV.
So isn't that about $800 or $900 on average?
We try and get to the 1,000, very close to 1,000, 1,050.
Okay. Jason, you want to?
So we average $1,660 on our down payments. We do a lot of trucks and SUVs, but my old man always came from the school of we want to see skin in the game, and if you can't save up $1,000, you don't need a car right now. And there are exceptions to every rule, and I think that's kind of, if we're getting their trade in, regardless of the value of the trade, as long as we're not towing it in, we're going to value that trade in we're giving some more value to get that trade away from the customer. So we like to see more than $1,000 down. $1,000 down is about our minimum. We don't advertise that. We try to get customers in at any type of down payment, and then we try to get them to that 1,000 number. We like 1,000. We feel like 1,000 is a big number, and not a lot of our customers normally are able to save that much money. So that's kind of our.
So we're at 30.
What's your average ACV?
I'm sorry, what is it one more time? And that's your ACV, that's not the retail sales price. Yeah.
Well, an expensive car.
But we only have, we're probably conservative, but we only have, we're trending towards 90%. Our only rate would be 5. Our average.
I'm trying. We're getting like 15 statements, so I'm trying to slow it down a little bit. You carry a high ACV car, correct? Okay. That was it in a nutshell, and thank you for bringing that up. When you got a high ACV vehicle, cash down is just as critical as it is at any other point in the program. Cash matters. You're putting a lot of money on the street. Cash matters. The only thing that it doesn't matter is when you have a customer who's otherwise qualified for the vehicle, it doesn't make them more qualified because they put more money down, but it does let you mitigate your risk. So it's important to understand. You may have heard, and most of you have probably heard me say this at some point, that, hey, down payment's not important. It doesn't make a deal better. And in the long term, it doesn't, but it does dictate the amount of severity risk you're putting on the street. If that deal goes bad two days after you put it out there, you'll be very glad that you had the down payment. But if down payment drives performance, and after certain price points, statistically, down payment does drive performance. Higher downs are a direct correlation to better performance after a certain point, and that dollar amount's usually fairly high. So when that number's high, why is it high? Is it high because they put more money down, or is it high because they had more money to put down? Capacity to put a down payment down is more important to the performance of that note than the actual dollar amount of the down payment. Higher income, more stability, they're going to perform better. That's a no-brainer. We've known that for decades, right? Okay. Who's next? Brad. Nice and loud. One more time, please.
With regard to buying behavior underwriting, what would you say are the most vital components of doing that
Okay.
underwriting?
So, gentlemen, what are the most important components to buyer payer underwriting? Alan.
Two main ones, ability and stability. So it's historically with our portfolio, it is that client's ability of repayment. There's a super large gap between a $1,300 monthly income and a $2,700 monthly income, and it's crucial to place that client in the proper vehicle based on their ability of repayment. Stability, in my opinion, would be we have a lot of clients that are on staffing agencies that work, it's very hard for them to hold a job over 3 to 4 months. So as soon as you have a stability track with somebody that, is a year plus, has shown performance, that client historically will perform better. I don't care about a FICO or Beacon score. It's irrelevant to me. What I care about is length at the job, length at your home, and your paycheck. We have a buy here, pay here customer. Everybody's going to have terrible credit. Everybody's going to have collections. Everybody's going to have a repossession or two. That's just our industry. But we can qualify it based on ability and stability to ensure repayment.
Jason?
We like job time. We're big on job time. And to put that in this simple thought, if a guy's been on his job for 2 weeks, is he going to necessarily get a paycheck in 2 more weeks? But if the guy's been on his job for 10 years, the chances of him getting a paycheck next week or the week after that are pretty good. So if the guy's not getting paid, just like what Alan said, ability and stability. But we really like to look at job time. And if a guy's been on his job for a long time, we're going to make exceptions to get the deal done.
Yeah.
I can't disagree with both of them. So, again, ability to repay is, as if I have to put them in order, it will be the income, and we're talking about the net income, the take-home income, and the stability, where a lot of us sometimes make the mistake of just look at if the customer has a job today. I think we should look at how often the customers jump from one job to another, and that's not by itself against them. If somebody change jobs for better income, or that should be a plus actually. But if somebody goes without a job so often, most likely they'll go without a job, and that's where how they're going to pay us if they're often leave jobs, or they have 2-3 months between jobs. So ability to pay and stability and keeping jobs or keeping employment, that's very important as well.
And just to build off that, one more thing that's pretty crucial that I don't think we mentioned is the form of verifiable income. So whether or not that client has a W-2 or whether or not he's given you a handwritten job letter. So the type of verifiable income that you can attain is extremely important. If you've got physical paycheck stubs that show that client has consistent month in, month out income, is, at least for us, it's totally different than our loan performance is completely different from a W-2 standpoint to a cash 1099 standpoint. So we look very heavily into acquiring W-2.
Andres. So the question was about minimums on the things that just came out of the discussion for Brad, time on the job, for example.
And also to show the proof of employment site down to what else you do. Like I do sometimes at TLO closely companies that we use bank statements, what else, what do you
And add verification methods to that list. Gentlemen?
I'll go with that. You know, it depends if it's the first job. If the customer was without employment prior to the current job we're talking about, then 6 months and over 6 months, I think start providing some kind of peace in mind that this is a stable job. Maybe, I mean, the longer the better, definitely. But anything less than 6 months, at least in our operation, we look at it as still. But again, if somebody, you look at the previous jobs too. If somebody's been employed for a longer time, then the fact that it's been a recent job, it doesn't scare us by itself. We look at if there's gaps between them or not. And also as forms of verification, we try and look at multiple forms. You know, it's always two sources confirming each other definitely is better than one. So even a base stop is good, but if we can verify it through the work number or or any employment form by contacting the employment of, the employer of the customer. So always, or a bank statement showing the deposits going to the bank account. Two forms definitely is always gives us the peace of mind that this is a legitimate.
We had a question back here. Like determining ability to pay, how you go about it.
Yeah, we look at net income to take home, and we look at PTI, the payment to income. So the debts and what's in the credit bureau, really, we don't pay a lot of, we don't put weight on that. What we care about is the take home income and the payment to income ratio. We try and keep that into it. And this goes back to the down payment, the question where it's a variable tool actually to make the structure work. So if the income is limited, you like the customer, the stability and everything, except that the payment is too high, I can't see a way other than try and find a cheaper car or maybe ask for more down payment to make that deal structure work.
What kind of payment to income ratio do you consider acceptable?
In our operation, 25% max. So we try 20% is kind of ideal, 25% is max.
What about the rest of you guys on payment to income?
About the same.
We'll go up to 28% debt to income.
Is that P&I only? Okay.
Net.
Do you care what, the gross is nice, but the guy can't pay his car payment with the gross. And I hate when my salesmen say that to people. What's your gross monthly income? Who cares? Like what do you get after everything's taken out? Because we have mechanics that get $600 a month taken out of their, or biweekly taken out of their check for child support. But they're gross. They're making $70,000 a year. They're only taking home 40.
Minimum job time that's allowed.
Honestly, that's a flexible, depends on the other variables. So that's by itself, it's not the only factor we use. So if everything checks out and everything is good, except that the job, it's recent, probably will allow that. But if the job is so short, and that's a questionable factor, if there is other factors questionable, then both combined makes it a killer, basically.
Sorry. We would do, usually we look for 6 months historically. It's give and take here, again, like Nihat said with the variables, because there's so many different metrics that play into this. So you might have somebody that's on a staffing agency for a year and then gets directly hired 2 months ago. So it's really imperative for the sales rep to do a lot of proper investigation to really understand, hey, this guy might have been here for 2 years, but he just got hired on 2 months ago. And in that term, it's also, without that, we look for about 6 months. And because the risk gets exponentially higher with the short-term job, again, we historically compensate that with a down payment. And going to that previous question, those are the loans for us that perform the worst. Because we are getting more money down, that job time is shorter, the retention of that person is a lot shorter on that job, and very short after, if something happens, it's a tough loan repayment.
But to go back to your question, if it's a temp job and it's very short, I mean, we don't need to look at variables then. It's by itself will be enough.
Back here in the back's half. How do you overcome the customer's objections to your financing requirements? Sound right? Okay.
Well, listen, I mean, we want the business as much as the customer probably do. And let's be honest, the customers in our floor, they're here to buy a car. And if they like the product we offer, it's again, it's our terms. We're the finance company at the end of the day. Can't walk to the bank and lay down my terms to them. But we want the business, so we're not trying just to make it hard on them. Definitely, we're very flexible to the forms that they have, as long as they provide us sufficient, proof. So if we ask for a bank statement, for example, and the customer can't produce it, then just help me with another form that substitute that. So we're very flexible, but we don't let go what we're asking just because they're resisting back. I mean, we find out that customers who truly, the best of the customers, they're more ready to provide you any proof that you need.
Okay.
What factors say automatically,
What factors are an automatic fail? Will not do this deal.
Go ahead.
We look at what kind of job they do. So we don't finance people that drive Uber or Lyft primarily. If they're going to do any type of delivery out of their vehicle, we need to be collecting the amount of the cost of the vehicle up front. So we need a huge down payment. We'll do it, and occasionally we get it. But short time and area is a big thing for us. If the customer just moved to Florida from Kentucky and they fill out a reference sheet and we're looking at this reference sheet before we do our customer interview and every one of their relatives is in Kentucky and we have a conversation with them, and when buy here payer customers normally have an issue, they always run back to the family. And that's their real support system normally. So to answer your question, short time and area is a big determining factor for us.
Yeah, what's an automatic now?
That, yeah. So there's we have a list we created ourselves, and it might work for us. You need to evaluate them. But over the years, we established some, what we call them, deal killers. Basically, somebody with a bankruptcy or 2 bankruptcies recently, and somebody who have 2 rebos in their bureau in the last year. So it just kind of helped us establish habit. If the guy reboot 2 times in the last 8 months, most likely they're going to reboot the 3rd one. So we look at young with no driver license. I mean, those common things that you establish based on your own history of doing business. But we also have a rule: if you give me 50% of the down payment, then I wouldn't even underwrite you. I'll sell you the car. So it's the risk mitigation there. Bankruptcy, short rebos, jobs again with other factors and variables are important.
Another notion that's entered the discussion in the last couple of years has been the notion of the early repossession. They could have just had 1 repo in the last 12 months, but if it was really early in the life of the note, that's generally not good from a performance standpoint, no matter how you slice it. And I know some people for whom that's pretty much an automatic fail if they have that quote-unquote first 6 months early repo, because looking at their own data, it made no sense to do deals that had that.
Agree.
I stepped on a bunch of people. Rick, I think I saw your hand first.
What percentage of applications do you deliver, and what is your best source of applications?
What percentage of your applications do you deliver, and your best source?
53% delivered. Digital is the best source. Anything Facebook, programmatic, Google Ads, mainly the social side of things is a tremendous lead generator.
We're delivering 30% of the credit applications we pull. And our best application is coming from our website. So when people go on there and fill out a credit application and submit it, that seems to be our highest conversion avenue right now.
Nihad?
Yes, if we're talking about the application submitted, we're about 40%.
And your best source?
Online, definitely. All the social media is the best.
Ken Turkle. GPS unit strategy.
We're checking. So the GPS strategy, I'll just stay focused on that because this could get.
It's a loaded question.
That could take all day, Ken. Thanks.
What we're doing with that, we have start or interrupt, but we don't use it very often. One thing we're looking at is where's that car sleeping at night in its first couple weeks after they purchased it from us, because that's a good determining factor if they lied to you about their address. And we want to know if that tracking device just stops working for some reason. Like, no tracking devices ever stop working, but sometimes we get the one or two that do. We want to know where it was originally. And what we find is if we're seeing a tracking device that is never tracking at the address that they gave us, we're flagging the account to say, we got some inconsistencies here. Yeah. We're watching it. We may never even look at it again. The customer may pay perfect, and we may never talk to the customer again, but at least we're noting where that is in the first couple weeks.
Alan?
We use our devices heavily, and it's we track everything. We have a specific setup compilatory system of when a payment reminder goes in, so it's completely consistent across the board. A lot of time. So the issue with shutting off a vehicle is that when you get to the point of shutting off a vehicle, 70% of that time that loan is pretty much done. Because that customer is infuriated. That customer is, he's just upset to a T where there's very little you can do to come back from that. So it's all about, the preventative maintenance to get there. But yes, we do have a system, 0 to 5 days past due, level 1. Then we have another system that goes 5 to 10 days, level 2, and each time it increases in volume. And if there's no promise to pay, if there's no communication, if we can't get a hold of them, if we can't, we've done everything in the world that we can, and it gets to that point for vehicle shut-off, then we do take that measure. But yes, we use them very heavily.
Nihad?
Yes, we do too, actually. I agree with both what they mentioned before, that after making the loan decision, probably first step is try and see if we made a good loan or not. And immediately, if the device is not tracking at the addresses where they provided as a job or home, then you probably know that's a risky loan to start with. But we also use our GPS for payment reminders and for start or interrupt, and we heavily use the GPS data and information. We use it for collection, for geofencing, for impounds, for tows alerts, for all the options that we can utilize in our collection department.
Okay. Had one over here. Oh my goodness. I didn't mean to do. Go right ahead. experience with fixed income customers?
It's one of my don'ts. No, it's very difficult because on a fixed income, I have funded some SSI, some SSDI, and on a fixed income, our average in our portfolio, our average SSI is $889. Sometimes it's as high as $1190 a month. But the only real problem with a fixed income is that vehicle. We sell a buy here, pay here car. It's going to need service. It's going to need maintenance. It's going to need money put into it. On a fixed income, our strategy is that payment will never be over $270 a month, simply to get that customer a little bit of leniency if we do fund it. And on a fixed income, per our portfolio, say we've got a 70% failure rate. I mean, sometimes it'll last 18 months, but at that 14 to 18 month mark, things start to go wrong. You know, that client on fixed income usually does a lot less maintenance to that vehicle. And as you drive, as you go on, things start to happen. And that's when you usually see that loan decline.
I'll expand on that. I think it's fine if you structure the right deal for them. If you find them a cheaper car with lower payment, just for the reasons that Ellen mentioned, I think they'll be fine with the right structure of the deal. So take in consideration their income and how much the PTI that we talked about earlier.
On that customer with a fixed income that's not working, we find ends up being the Lyft or Uber for their friends and family members and their neighborhood. So we see a lot more miles put on that car when they come in for servicing, and we feel like the car's getting destroyed faster by that customer who, like Alan said, has less money to repair that car, and a lot of times can even be more of a difficult customer to deal with when it comes to needing service on that vehicle. So that has influenced us heavily in the last couple years with the amount of fixed income we do, because the car takes a lot more abuse than normal people driving to a job and working most of the day and then driving home.
Is there any recourse for
I'm sorry, what?
Recourse for what, Brad? I'll answer this one. That one's contract specific. Depends on whether or not you exclude vehicles used for commercial purpose. Be very careful. Oh, can you? Technically, yes. Be very careful. You got to treat all similar situations the same. So you don't get to pick and choose which people you repossess because they started driving for Uber. You're going to do it to one, you're supposed to do it to all of them. Do you want to do it to all of them? It depends. You don't necessarily know the answer. That's my caution.
So I'll extend on that for a second. All of our stores have no rideshare signs posted all over, and it also is embedded in our contract that you cannot contractually commercially drive on our vehicle with us being a lien holder. Just black and white. Oh, you don't? I can't. Yeah, it's there, but are they going to pull up with Uber stickers and Lyft stickers? That's inevitable, absolutely. But if, for example, if we catch it and our collections team catches it, that's their form of income, let's say a lot of times they pull up to the dealer and one of the sales reps or the managers will be running outside. They'll see it. We'll check it. We'll ask them for bank statements. As soon as we have that verification on the bank statement with Uber, Lyft, rideshare, whatever, we'll pull that loan.
Okay, that just occurred to me. A little underwriting tip on your documentation. Get a bank statement, even from people that have W-2 income with a pay stub. It's amazing how many times Uber and Lyft and DoorDash and things like that show up in their bank statement. You would have had no idea otherwise that they're going to drive your car into the ground quickly. It's amazing how often that happens. I think that's pretty much a best practice these days, is to go for the bank statement across the board.
And I think it's good that we're talking about this early because, Jacksonville, Florida is where we are. And Uber and Lyft have been around for a while, but I think the adoption is really increasing. Like, whereas people my parents' age weren't using Uber and Lyft 2 years ago, they are now. And I think the demand for Uber and Lyft drivers, maybe the cool factor of being able to work for yourself with your car and be flexible and go to the doctor whenever you need to and take time off, and it really gives people this idea that, wow, this is a great job. I was reading an article the other day, the average Uber driver makes $9 an hour. They don't see it that way. They're seeing this direct deposit in their bank account, and they're thinking, wow, I'm making a lot of money doing this.
Hey, we had quite a few questions. We're getting close on time. I want to pick up the ones who've been patiently waiting after I missed the first one. Back here in the corner.
I'm curious if they use a commercial scoring system like AutoZone.
Okay.
They have their own internally developed system.
Everybody hear that one?
I'm pretty loud.
Love it. Okay. Commercial scoring systems, and how often do you look at it, tweak it, refresh it?
We do not use a commercial scoring system.
We do not either. We do customer interviews on every customer that comes through with our sales manager.
We do use a scoring system. Actually, we've used a few of them throughout the years, and we do currently use a scoring system. But again, that's by itself is not enough. Definitely, every information goes into the scoring system. We get it verified. So verification is the key to the whole success of the underwriting system. It's not the scoring system, because whatever you get in it, you get out. But we do use one, yeah.
What is your max living area? Radius from the dealership, 10 miles, 20 miles, 100 miles?
Lending radius.
90 miles.
90 miles is about, we look at cities and counties, and we try to keep it, we really try to keep it where we know we can repossess or not. If we know someone's going to be 4 hours away, we're wondering why they're driving 4 hours to come to us in the first place. It's not like our cars are that much different than the guy that's 2 hours away.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in the DFW, and we go probably up to 100 miles, maybe 75 miles. But, outside of that, it's not a deal killer by itself, the fact that, the customer is 100 miles. Or if it's really good deal, then we're willing to tolerate some of the mileage. But definitely we try and keep it within 100 miles radius.
You've been waiting.
Do you have a minimum term or a maximum term?
Minimum or maximum terms?
We have a maximum terms of 48 months. We try and keep it at 42. So anywhere between 42 and 48. Definitely anything less than 42 would be better.
We'll take a proven customer out to 48 months. That way we can put them in a newer car. If we have a customer that just paid one out and they were a good customer, we feel they have good credit with us. So in order to put them in a nicer car and not require a down payment as large as we would normally want, we will extend the term out for that customer to 48 months. We keep our loans on average 36 months.
I'll go up to 60 months. I got a great paying customers, paid for 3 years, 4 years, come on back, choose another. We love you.
You don't do that on new people, though, do you?
Huh?
You don't do that on new people, do you? New customers? You won't go out 60 months on a new customer, will you?
Yeah.
Oh, you will?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rarely, but it happens.
Yes, definitely. So the mileage in the vehicle, the income, I mean, again, all of it dictated by the covenants that you put all together, like the down payment helps reduce the monthly payment, and the BTI, it depends what their income and what your monthly payment. You want to try and maximize how fast you recover your money back. So the shorter the terms, as long as you don't set the customer to fail, basically. As long as it's an affordable payment that they can budget for and make, then the shorter terms, the better. Yes, definitely. We factor the mileage in the vehicle in the term. So, a car has 60,000 miles can go longer terms than a car that has 120,000 miles, definitely.
I'll comment on that. We sell a higher mileage truck and SUV. I mean, we'll start a loan with 180,000 miles on a Chevrolet truck, and we'll finance that truck for 3 years and 2 months. And kind of our philosophy is with our customers, whether they start with a vehicle that's 80,000 miles or 150,000 miles, they're probably going to be the last customer that drives that vehicle due to the excessive wear and tear that our customer puts on the car. So we find we can buy a cheaper car with higher miles. We can get our money back out of the vehicle faster. And if the customer makes it 2 years and 11 months in a 3-year and 3-month loan, we've gotten our money back. We found out what kind of customer we have, and we can put them into another vehicle.
Go ahead.
Do a lot of deferred down payments. Absolutely. Max, $1,000. But we won't do that within the next 2-week pay period. So it would have to be, for example, if you put $500 down today, $500 in 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks more, $500 with your payments starting in a month from there, from the first dip note. So you don't want to strangle that customer, because when they're in front of you, they'll sign anything. They see that ride, they love it, they'll sign anything you put in front of them. But you gotta make sure that they can physically attain it.
We do defer down payments, but it's not part of the decision making of the deal. So basically, if we're willing to do the deal without the deferred, then we'll do it. So assume if there is no deferred, we still do it or not. But if the customer is willing to put some more deferred down payments, definitely we do it. Try and keep it within 20-30% of the original down payment.
Jason.
We do about 4 or 5 deferred down payments a month, and we're doing 70 buy or pay your deals a month. So we're not doing a whole lot of them, and they average about $400 per deferred down payment.
Number of days to first payment?
2 weeks.
Depends on the structure. Usually we keep it within the same frequency. So if it's a bi-weekly, within 2 weeks, or if it's a monthly account, then within 30 days. So
It would be based on the customer pay schedule, bi-weekly, semi-monthly, monthly. It would fit their structure.
All right, we have time for one more. Titus, you had one earlier. Did you get it answered? Who does the underwriting? Like who physically handles the loan decisioning?
we have, again, like I mentioned, in our system, we use a scoring system that the store managers use at the time of sale. If we try and verify the information at the time of sales, but anything outside of that is determined by the scoring system. But we do have a centralized verification team for all our stores, so every deal has to go through them where they verify all the information.
We also have a centralized verification and underwriting department. The underwriting all goes through myself and my other financial manager, but we do have a centralized hub for all the verification. Before every deal, we do a customer introduction with the account rep, whether it's on a satellite store, we do it over Skype. If it's at our hub main location, we'll do it right then and there. You'll be surprised about the information that the collector or the account representative will pull that the sales rep did not. So that's also a requirement before the vehicle rolls.
We have one person doing it. We have one store, so we have one person that's doing all of our underwriting. She's pulling the credit. She's reading the credit app. She's looking at the pay stub. She's really looking at that year-to-date that's on the pay stub to make sure it matches what they said, how long they've been on that job for. And then we're also doing a customer interview where the customer comes in, and that could be a 5-minute interview. That could be a 15-minute interview. It just depends on the situation.
Okay. Nihad, you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, just one last thing I'd like to mention. We didn't touch on one thing I think is very important in the in the underwriting altogether, which is we're in a very fast moving daily pace, and we could talk about what we need from the customer all day long, but we don't have all day long really to, to keep asking. So the point I want to make is we end up with a lot of customers, and if we focus on the less likely deals, probably those are the customers who's willing to wait in our floor, in our dealership all day long for whatever it takes at the end, because they don't have a lot of options. But our best customers, just keep in mind, our best customers are those who knows they have alternatives, they have other options. And probably we need to jump in and identify fast enough which ones are our best customers, try and handle those rather than just treat everyone the same waiting in the pipeline, because probably you lose the best customers. If you have them wait for hours to make a decision, that's probably too long. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, we're doing a deal in like less than an hour. So we don't spend a whole. I've talked to guys that take, 4 or 5 hours to underwrite a deal. And to us, to your point, we feel we can get what we need in 60 minutes if the customer has their information available and they're willing to cooperate. We don't need multiple hours.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time we have allotted. Please give these guys a big hand.